Welcome into the Gramlich and McLean podcast, presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean. Mac, we continue to talk playoff. I mean, I'm not sure we thought we'd be talking playoff this late in the year. Maybe Mac did. I feel like I was a little bit more pessimistic, but it's so interesting to think, Mac. Just a couple weeks ago, or a month ago, we were talking doomsday. The ACC gets 0 teams in. And now the ACC has a team in the semifinals. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, now the ACC is going to be national champs. I mean, it's crazy. It's wild. Dominating bowl season. Let me just yes to all of that. It is wild to think about that turn of events. Can I just say I'm living my best life right now? I mean, I am on Twitter body slamming people left and right, just going nuts because I have something to stand on. Listen, a month and a half ago, I was like, in a nice little house, like, hey, yelling and screaming. Right now, I am at the penthouse looking down at all these peasants and just throwing pennies at them from my Miami penthouse. That's what I'm doing right now. So
you are.
It's kind of untouchable, feels good. It's nice, to have a team, that's respectable and has my back. And I feel really good about it. So, yeah, that's nice. That's super cool. I do think it's interesting, too, just how well the ACC is playing. And it does just make you wonder because, and this is why, we're going to go on this tangent. Everyone
do it
on the journey.
We're going to talk Fiesta Bowl, but
It's so fascinating how we can lose to Tulane. We can lose to UConn. We can lose to whoever Pitt lost to. I forgot. Horrific bowl loss.
West Virginia.
We can have these terrible things, that happen all throughout. And then just go nuclear in the postseason and win all these great games, and everyone looks amazing. And so SMU, huge win, over a ranked Arizona team. That was great. Jake Forrest out here balling, killing the SEC. Love that. For their 9th win, which is nuts in the Mayo Bowl. First coach to get a Mayo bath. That's big in the ACC. Very big and proud. And then just, little old Miami dominating people left and right. And what another opportunity they have to essentially kill the SEC monster and just banish them. Like, you're gone. See you later. No one will talk about you until preseason. They have that opportunity here with Ole Miss, and it's a tall task. Ole Miss is a great team, fantastic team, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But it is truly amazing just to think about their journey. And we're going to have D-Money on, too. D-Money's like in 10 seconds. We're going to get to D-Money. And I asked him this question. When you lost to SMU that afternoon, because that was an 11 a.m. kick local, what were you thinking, and did you think you'd be where you are? And the answer for me is, hell no. I did not think that. And yet the Hurricanes turned it all around, look like they looked for 80% of the season, and they're playing so well. It's really fun to watch, KG.
It is, and we are going to get to D-Money. He's the best. He's always willing to join us, and I think he is the best Miami guest to talk to. Like, truly, we're just going to keep bringing him on because I think he's so fantastic. We also will get to, after Miami season is over, which it will, I'm thinking, end in a win. We will get to kind of what else we saw in this bowl season and start recapping other programs. Because some of those wins, Mac, we didn't even mention. Virginia over Missouri.
Huge.
Big win there. Duke over Arizona State. And then, of course, you mentioned SMU and the Deke. So some really, really good wins for the ACC. Mac, I was in ACC country celebrating New Year's. I was in North Carolina, which I live in ACC country. You don't, Mac, actually. But I was in Asheville, the home of Ingles. And we do it pretty big for New Year's with some really good college friends. We had some delightful steaks that we got at Ingles. We had mashed potatoes. My husband makes, this is a weird sentence, but hear me out here, Mac. My husband makes his grandmother's famous gorgonzola salad.
Wow. Sounds great.
It's so good. Like, with a steak and mashed potatoes, fantastic. So there's an Ingles 2 seconds from the house that we always stay at.
Of course.
We go out there, we load up. It's just the best. And we're going to see if Bill's listening, okay?
Come on, Bill.
Bill Armstrong, SMU notable, one of our friends. Remember when he sent us those massive bottles of wine from his winery?
Yes.
He sent it to us last January, and I had just found out I was pregnant, so I was not drinking that wine. My friends and I put away that big bottle of wine for New Year's Eve. I sent it to Bill, thanked him, and then, of course, SMU got the win. So I know Bill's living his best life. So is SMU.
Well, speaking of Bill and speaking of Ingles, we need to like make that connection and get Bill's
Love
wine in
that.
Ingles. We need to
Yes.
become like I don't know what that's called, a distributor or something of that. I guess
Mac,
Ingles would be the distributor.
heck yeah, let's go.
We need to find a way to do that. So, Bill, if you are in fact listening, text me right now and we'll get it done. But really excited about this episode, D-Money. And on the backside, we are going to have some fun analysis, some keys, and jump further into this matchup, some X and O stuff, if you will. So, a quick message from our friends over at Ingles, and then let's talk D-Money.
Did you know Ingles only sells USDA choice and prime cuts of meat? Maybe it's time to reward yourself. Our butchers cut all our meat fresh in the store every day. Grass-fed, organic, you name it. Not only that, we'll even cut it to order just the way you like it. And we grind meat fresh in the store multiple times a day. It's all in the bag. That's the best meat in town for the best folks in town. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
D-Money, welcome back, baby. These Canes just keep on rolling, and it is it's been amazing to watch. You know, it's one thing if you go back to the SMU game, and if I told you the Canes would be 2 games away from the national championship, would you have believed me? Would you think I was crazy? Because I keep taking myself back there, and that was a low moment. I mean, that game was ugly. It was gross. And what was you thought if I told you that day?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. If you go back before the Louisville loss, the way the national media was talking about Miami, the way Miami was performing is really what you're seeing now. They were winning with physicality. Teams were not able to deal with our defensive ends, veteran quarterback making good decisions, all that stuff. So it was almost like just a break in the middle of the year where, they just weren't executing. A lot of things just weren't clicking. And it's funny, by the way, little old ACC, 8-4 in bowl games, right? And I want to focus on that because, to your point, those were ACC losses. Miami's played 3 top 10 teams between Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and now Ohio State. They have not trailed for a second of those games.
Not that they haven't lost. They haven't freaking trailed.
So I think everybody else talk about, and I heard this when I did the Texas A&M podcast before that game. They said, do you think ACC competitions prepared Miami for the tournament? And I said, absolutely. And I think you're seeing that ACC, not only they have better teams than people think, but they play different styles. So now you're going to play an Ole Miss, which we'll talk about in a second. Miami's played fast-paced teams that get rid of the ball quick, certainly with SMU, who dominated last night. So I think there were a lot of things Miami needed to change we talked about on this show before. But ultimately, it's a long season, and the competition and conference is much more difficult than I think the national media understands.
That is a great way to put it, D-Money. And we could just play that on a loop on our YouTube channel because you're saying what we've been saying for most of the year. And I think you're exactly right. And we obviously want to preview this game with Ole Miss. I want to hit on this, though, from just a kind of a big picture thing that I think applies to Ole Miss is this defense and what this Miami defense has done. The way you played against A&M, Ohio State, an offense that was so electric, holding them to 14 points. And I remember when we were previewing A&M, we spent a good chunk of time talking defense, but also talking Keontae Scott and how important he was going to be and if he was going to be back. It feels like he's been a game changer, plus this D-line. Like, is this what you kind of – I'm not sure we thought the defense could have been this good against A&M and Ohio State. What did you expect?
It's been better than I expected. Your home state of Texas has been good to the Miami Hurricanes. I couldn't even leave. I'm in Granbury right now. I got George Strait and George Jones on the Ox. But, yeah, both of those performances were outstanding defensive performances. Keontae Scott, who – that's turf toe. That's a tough injury. We didn't even know he was going to play. And not only does he play and provide the emotional lift or whatever, he is one of the best players on the field in both games, both run support, Texas A&M rushing the passer and really, bottling up Marcel Reed. And then you saw his ability to break on the ball, his film study with that pick six. And that play was so huge, I think. We talked about Ohio State's one of the slowest paced teams, the slowest paced team in the country. Miami not far behind. So 1 or 2 plays really have an outsized impact on the outcome of these games because there's just not that many plays. It's not like SMU where there's a lot of plays, right? So that play was pivotal and made the difference. Defensively, though, the defensive tackles, I want to give them some props because I think we talk so much about Bain and Messidor. We talk so much about Keontae Scott, and with good reason. But these defensive tackles, Ahmad Moten, Justin Scott, David Blay, Armando Blunt, they are really causing a lot of havoc. They don't get the headlines that the outside guys get, but they have been extremely, extremely effective both against Texas A&M and Ohio State in their interior offensive lines.
Well, and I don't think, just stop there. I think the linebackers have been flying around. I think the safeties have been hitting. I mean, Thomas, my gosh, that dude has been laying the freaking wood. And I thought the corners were really physical. Listen, Jeremiah Smith was going to get his. We knew that. He's too good not to. But overall, I thought they played a great game. Thought they weren't afraid. Thought they weren't scared. Played really physical. This defense as a whole, I mean, literally, I don't think there was a more impactful hire than hiring Coach Heatherman, because not only did he, help acquire the talent and upgrade where you needed to upgrade, but D-Money, he understands he's got a bunch of Ferraris out there, man. I don't have to line up and trick you. I just let them go. I just need them to be set and be confident in what we call not looking to the sideline when the ball snapped, not trying to be super exotic and get out of position. You front four, go hunt. Back here, we'll take care of whatever gets through. And it has been electric to see that, man. So I think you have to give them a ton of credit. I do want to flip back over to the offensive side for a second here before we get to a preview and actually have another comment kind of after that. It was hilarious to me, and I know it was you too, that all these people out of nowhere said, how's Miami going to be able to score? How can they move the ball? Oh, they've averaged 40 points a game, but in a hurricane game against Texas A&M in front of 100,000 with 30-mile-an-hour winds, they only scored 10. How are they going to do it? And it just, honestly, it pissed me off, because it just goes back to people will try to find whatever they can about the ACC and use that, because no one said a word about how Ohio State scored 10 in a loss, by the way, the last time that they played football. So I think it's hilarious that Miami just said, oh, you giving up 8 points a game? We will triple that and hammer you in the biggest game of the season. So was that comic to you? Were you, just lapping your way to the game? Like, what was your thoughts on all that rhetoric?
Well, I know I'm going to sound like an ACC homer here, but it's true. You hear about the body types up front. Miami ran the ball against Notre Dame when they needed to, and in fact dominated the running game against what was perceived to be the best running game in the country, Notre Dame. Miami stopped them, and they ran on them as needed. Florida, no problem. Then Texas A&M, dominant. Ohio State, dominant. Really, where Miami did not run the ball well was that period of time you're talking about in ACC play, where teams got a beat on Miami's running game, and they just weren't able to get the push they needed. So the narrative about the body types and all that, Miami's running game, I think, has been more effective outside of the ACC than inside the ACC. So do with that what you will. But as far as, Ohio State, they're a great defense. So that was a real challenge. They got dudes out there. You saw it firsthand. Those linebackers, they can run. So it wasn't so much, my concern wasn't so much Miami's offense, but Ohio State's defense and just what they provide. I was surprised, not by the pass protection, because I thought Miami would hold up there. I didn't expect Miami to get the push up front consistently that they did. And they really, you were there, you saw it. Kelly, you saw it on TV. I mean, it was a physical beating up front. It was nothing fancy. It was not the trick plays with Malachi Toney. It wasn't even Gerard Pringle getting loose for a big one. I mean, it was mano a mano, even Malachi Toney getting in on it, right? Getting in on that last drive with multiple key blocks. It was a physical beating. And I think that was maybe my biggest surprise, was how easy it was for Miami to run the ball against such a great defense.
And just for people to double down on this, why we thought it wouldn't be that easy, because we have gloated and been excited about how big, nasty, and strong, Miami's offensive line is, how great that run game is. But when you're going against 5 first-rounders, you think that would even it a little bit, and there would be more of a fair share of, them winning their battles. And that, just wasn't the case. So the one more thing I wanted to bring up, KG, and if you have anything less on this game, certainly talk about it. When I saw that clip, I believe Grant brought it up about the defensive lineman Curry saying, we play this game 9 more times. We know how that goes. I think we do know how it goes. Ohio State getting their ass whipped. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't luck. Miami is not the Cinderella. That they are the dominant team in this whole thing. And I think there's 2 of those dominant teams left. I think Indiana on the other side. So do we have 2 teams just hustling down the track for a collision course? But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, maybe it's a little more even, but to say 9 other times, I mean, this win was not a fluke. This win was not a fluke.
Well, Miami's got to play better in hypothetical games. We lost the hypothetical rematch
killed
in
in
Notre
these
Dame.
Hypotheticals, man.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was talking to a Miami fan before the game, and he was saying, well, they play 100 times. Ohio State wins 65. And I said, talk to me after the first quarter because I want to see how those trenches look. I said, maybe, I don't know. Let's talk to me after the first quarter because we got to see how these trenches match up. And after the first quarter, I turned to my wife and I'm like, man, if they play smart, this is going to be a good day for Miami because on both sides of the ball, they're just not matching up. And you can't go into halftime and fix that. You can't make these guys bigger and stronger and more technical at halftime. So I agree with you. I think, look, the pick six was obviously a decisive play.
Right.
But the reason the pick six happened, one of the big reasons pick six happened was because Bain got an incredible jump off the line, which he was getting consistently. And if he wasn't beating them with the first step, he was going right through them, as was Messidor, as were the defensive tackles, as, by the way, was Marquise Lightfoot, kind of an unsung hero of this game, number 12, former 5-star. Keep an eye on him as sort of like Arvo Reese is on their side, Ohio State, the top 5 pick as a kind of linebacker defensive end hybrid. Marquise Lightfoot, true sophomore out of Chicago, 5-star, number 12. He is that for Miami. He was pressing receivers. He was tackling guys in space. He was getting pressure, getting sacks, got pressure on the last interception. He's another one to keep an eye on. I think is going to be a star in the ACC going forward.
Yeah, and I feel like, you talk about the people saying fluky stuff. It feels like if you win the lines of scrimmage, it can never feel fluky. And that's what Miami did. So I don't know what these people are talking about. All right, let's get to a little Ole Miss talk. Miami, an early 3.5-point favorite is what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing a little more respect for Miami.
Kind of weird. I don't know if I like it.
Yeah.
I don't like this feeling.
Compared to A&M Ohio State. And
easy money so far.
Yeah, right. Mac and I were having this conversation before you hopped on, D-Money. It's interesting. Like, will we see the two programs that feel the most committed to this playoff in terms of coaches staying, all that, Miami and Indiana, will we see them end up together? Because you had A&M with some coordinator changes. You had Ohio State with a different play caller. Now you've got Ole Miss with, these assistant coaches that are feeling the pressure from Lane Kiffin, who looks like a complete jerk this whole scenario, but we won't get into that. So that'll be interesting to see. But with Ole Miss, they beat Georgia. They have a very explosive quarterback, very explosive offense with Keywan Lacey back in the mix. It's just a game changer for them. How do you see this defense specifically for Miami matching up against this Ole Miss offense?
It's a tough matchup, and I think for some of the reasons you stated, which is Chambliss is a great player. Keywan Lacey, I think, is one of the elite running backs in the country. He runs a 10.49 with his size, so he's an NFL type of guy. I don't think he's getting the national attention that he deserves, and hopefully not after this game. But he's certainly he's in that Jeremiah Love category for me. But the real problem I have with this matchup is they get rid of the ball fast and they play a fast pace. So if you're going against Messidor and Bain, which there's a lot of strengths to this Miami team, but I think the first thing anyone's going to talk about with Miami is going to be those defensive ends, right? That's the tip of the spear for this Miami team. When you get rid of the ball fast, when you play at a fast pace, kind of tire those guys out, and when your quarterback can move a little bit, we saw SMU neutralize Bain and Messidor to a good degree playing that style. So that is the big concern you have with this matchup. Now, the coaching thing, I don't know what's going on there, but that cannot be good for them. It's just, you saw what Texas A&M and Ohio State had to deal with. This is like a whole nother level. I mean, you're accusing your own coaches of tampering. That's different. So total respect for the players on Ole Miss for getting through this. I mean, they are studs to just Trinidad Chambliss. You could tell he's a big time leader and keeping it calm in the middle of that storm. But that can't be good. From Miami's side, obviously you can't get into that favorite mindset. That's, like you said, that's the big concern there. But I think this is the semifinal. I mean, this is the Fiesta Bowl. You got veteran guys. You got just players who love to play football. If you're letting the foot off the gas here, something went wrong. I don't see that, but I do think stylistically, because of the way Ole Miss plays on offense, it does neutralize Miami's greatest strength to a degree. And I think Moton, we talked about the defensive tackle, Justin Scott, Armando Blunt, those real good pass rushing defensive tackles that Miami has. If they can get pressure up the middle with a smaller quarterback, that will really go a long way to get this defense going.
Yeah, I 100% understand what you're saying, but I just saw this game in Texas A&M, and you guys had 7 sacks. I just saw a quarterback who was very mobile, who was probably faster, to be honest. Maybe Chambliss is a better thrower, but I think that he's a better runner. And I saw them destroy him. And so to me, I think you have the blueprint, and that's great. I'd much rather that be the case instead of us just going against 2 pocket passers in a row, and then you have this dynamic nightmare. They had 5 sacks against a pocket passer and should have had more. They had 7 against a super mobile guy. You just have to change what you do. You have to go back to that mindset of we're going to get to a certain point and we're going to stop. And then that pocket's just going to collapse in and we're going to suffocate. And as soon as he makes the wrong move, we're hitting him, because all that dancing around, all that change in direction, that 30-yard, change of field where he's looping around in the end zone, that's not happening against Miami. That you're getting hit. And you're probably dropping the fumble, the football there. So to me, man, I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see that chess match, because I think if you take that away, this team, listen, and I'm not trying to give out a bunch of rat poison. It is what it is.
Yeah, come on, man. What are you doing?
But it's true. I was, not that I was concerned, but I was much more intrigued with the Georgia matchup. I thought that with the mental Olympics that would be there with Carson, with the style, with the guys, just that they have. I thought that was going to be a really tough matchup. This one, now you have to assume the role that we're the best team in this playoff, play like that. It's not disrespect. It's we're playing because of who we are and what we can do. And so I'll be really interested just to see if they can harness that and walk that way, for these next 2 games, because I think that's a really big deal. The interesting thing about the coaching thing too, whether they're coaching, they're not coaching, they're halfway coaching, everybody in the program is going to feel that. It is going to be weird. It is going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be awkward. You might be FaceTiming with a coach in a meeting because this dude's at LSU recruiting. I mean, it is going to be strange. How do you overcome that? To me is going to be the biggest deal. When you look at Carson Beck and what he's been able to do, man, he has been just a steady player his entire career. People want to poke and prod at the 5% that is bad, but they forget there's another 95% that's been electric. You know how much Miami has invested in this thing. You know how much scrutiny came with it at the beginning of the year. How does Miami feel? How do you feel? How does everyone involved with that situation feel about Carson Beck and the investment that was kind of made there?
Couldn't be happier. Obviously, financially, it's paying off. You got $14 million, as you pointed out on Twitter. So the math on that's pretty good. But I think Beck, first of all, in the locker room, I've heard nothing but great things from the beginning. So whatever happened at Georgia, I don't know. I can tell you here, he is fitting in like a glove. You see him. I mean, he's got handshakes with every player on the team, right? So it's one of those things like, and you can watch him like when the cameras aren't there. I mean, that's real from everything I've seen and heard. So that's been awesome. Just happy for him and all the adversity he's faced. Like you said, I never heard Carson Beck's name mentioned by the national media without like a but or a negative. And I don't understand why, because number one, this guy's 36-5 as a starter. He's 15-3 against ranked opponents. I don't know how many top 10 opponents he's beaten, but it's a lot. So like that's been done. He's been proven in that way. And you don't win those games by accident. And I'll say a comment on Georgia. This is a slight detour, but I know people are going to call me an ACC homer, but I said the same thing on my show. I'm not just saying this because I'm with you guys. With SEC and Georgia being a flagship SEC program, the idea was Beck had these great players around him. That's why he was winning. He has upgraded his situation since leaving Georgia to go to Miami. And not because he's playing ACC competition, but because he's playing with better players. And I think with Georgia, watching that Georgia game, I was surprised. Kirby Smart, I felt, was coaching like he knew he didn't have a very good team. By his standards, right?
Correct.
I think the fact that they won the SEC, number one, it says a lot about the SEC. Number two, it says a lot about Kirby Smart's coaching job, because they don't have the dudes they used to have at Georgia, in my opinion. And I think SEC in general, again, maybe this is a chip on our shoulder as an ACC podcast and ACC program with Miami, but we hear all about the SEC. The only teams that the SEC has beaten this year have been SEC teams.
Correct.
And have they beaten anybody else?
No. They're 500 against Power 4 right now.
That's crazy.
And in the tournament, they've been, done nothing.
Abysmal.
They beat each other
week.
in the tournament. They beat each other.
That's it. That's it. And I think there has been a change of the guard in that way. We'll see now with this game, right? Obviously, this is the most important one, but we'll see. If Miami takes care of business, I think it'll be a strong statement that this old paradigm where the SEC is on top and everybody else doesn't have the body types to compete, that would, to me, should be officially dead after this. Even Georgia Tech, I mean, that was a dogfight, Georgia and Georgia Tech. It's not like Georgia came in there and steamrolled Georgia Tech. 2 years in a row, Georgia Tech took them to the limit. So
right.
I think that whole narrative, hopefully this game, and if Miami can perform the way that they need to perform, and they performed in the last 2 games, hopefully this game would put that narrative to bed, at least for a little while, because
I agree.
this is the best of the SEC versus the best of the ACC.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And KG, the interesting thing about, D-Money's point right there about, not having the same players, the conference feels that way because you look at who the best are in this field. Miami's defensive line, probably number 1. Texas Tech's defensive line, probably number 2. Indiana, Oregon, all those guys. And then
Ohio State,
Oklahoma, and I know they're SEC, but then you're starting to talk about Bama. Then you're starting to talk about Georgia, which that was what it was. That was the factory, and the reason why they were able to win those big games, because that was so dominant. Skill players are everywhere. Quarterbacks are everywhere. But those lines of scrimmage, they matter. And that has been on full display, KG.
Spoken like a true offensive lineman, Eric McLean.
Beast mode. I'm wearing it for a reason. Let's go.
I do want to hit on the skill players for a second here, D-Money, because Malachi Toney he had great moments against A&M. I felt like he didn't even play. He didn't have as big of an impact against Ohio State. He had some great blocking at the end of the game. We can also talk about that. But other guys stepped up. Mark Fletcher was amazing. Who do you feel like, outside of Toney, because if Toney goes off in a game like this, it could be a game changer. Who else do you feel like Miami needs to get production from in a game like this, just talking more about the offensive side?
Yeah, Toney was wearing the beast mode shirt with his blocking, as was
right.
Mark Fletcher, by the way. If you watch a couple of refs against Arvell Reese, who top 5 pick, came in unblocked, and Fletcher met him, boom, and sent him back.
Hey, weren't people saying Mark Fletcher couldn't pass block too? Wasn't that a narrative coming into this game?
That was the weirdest thing. He's the best pass blocking back in the country.
I saw some strange takes going into this thing, dude. It was weird.
That was weird. But, CJ Daniels, Kelly stepped up huge, I thought, in this game. He wasn't the box scorer necessarily, but he made some huge catches, bringing that veteran presence. But I actually will go back to Toney, because I think this game against Ole Miss is a Toney game. I think, and Emacs can be mad at me, obviously you got to run the ball. They don't stop the run very well at Ole Miss, so you got to run the ball, keep rolling with Fletcher. But I do think some of the razzle-dazzle that you used earlier in the season with success, I think that'll be more effective against Ole Miss than it was, in the windstorm at Texas A&M with the monsters at Ohio State. Because, Ole Miss, watching them play, I know their defensive stability is more than their offensive stability, but they're not as sound as some of the other teams that I've seen in the playoffs, like in Indiana or Ohio State, right? So I do think that they could make some mental mistakes when they're faced with some of that eye candy and some of the things you saw with Malachi Toney. And Malachi Toney, as happy as he is with the win, I thought he was a little upset after the game. Not because he's like, I didn't get stats, right? Because you saw when he blocks, he doesn't care about the stats. He's trying to win. But I think he's disappointed with his own performance a little bit, the fumbles and that kind of thing. So I think he's got a chip on his shoulder in this game. You talk about who needs it, who needs that chip, who has that chip after everybody patting you in the back after Ohio State win. Toney's one that I think could have a monster game against Ole Miss. And when he's rolling, Miami's very hard to beat.
How fun that'll be. I can't wait to be there in person. I know you're going to be there too. D-Money, it is always great to get you on here, man. Thank you for your insight as always. And let's keep it going. I would love to do this again in about a week and a half.
Again.
That would be great. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you guys. Go Canes.
Rollback just dropped their licensed game day collection. Polos, hoodies, Q-zips. Custom designed for your school. On game days, we wear Rollback, period.
Thanks again to D-Money, Danny Enriquez from Canes Insight, for joining us. Make sure you guys are following Canes Insight. He gives you all the insight you could ever need on Miami. And he said a lot of good things there, Mac. Okay, let's get into this game. Number 10, Miami. Number 6, Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl, the college football playoff semifinals, baby. Miami, a 3.5-point favorite. Neither of these teams had a bye, so each of these teams is going into their third game in the playoff, which is very interesting. Ole Miss did kind of have a bye because they played Tulane, but whatever. We'll move on from that. As I said, Miami 3.5-point favorite, total at 52.5, 7:30 p.m., January 8th on ESPN. There are so many ways we could go here, Mac. Let's start offense. We started with defense with Danny, but offensively for Miami, we talked about against Ohio State, you needed to see more explosiveness. Of course, they needed against A&M, and yes, that game was in a crazy weather situation. And you need to see other players step up. I think you really did see that. Malachi Toney And D-Money talked about this. Like, Malachi Tony didn't even really play his best game, I think, by far. So there's a lot more that he can do going into this Ole Miss matchup. But other guys stepped up, which was huge. Carson Beck managed the game perfectly. He didn't make mistakes. I think you can go into this game, at least offensively, with a very similar plan than you did against Ohio State. And you're going up against a defense that's frankly not as good as Ohio State's.
No, not even close. And I think that's what's interesting about this is by far and away the worst. Again, this is still a playoff team. I'm not saying what I'm not saying, but what I am saying, it is the worst defense statistically that Miami has played in this college football playoff. And the fact that it's at a neutral site, not, in front of 100,000 plus people, not, against the number one defense in the country in Ohio State in like every statistical category. This is against a team that's given up 150 yards rushing. That is at the very bottom group of the SEC in yards allowed from a running perspective, in the middle of the pack for total yards and middle of the pack of scoring. So, to me, it's almost like, you take a little bit of a breath, and you're like, golly, this is great. Let's see what works. Let's go. Let's have this game plan in here. And I also love what you just brought up, what he said about Malachi Tony and the chip on his shoulder, and how much is he going to be like, okay, like it's go time. Like I've dropped the ball a couple of times in regards to fumbling. I've put my team in some weird spots, but I've also won games.
Yeah.
Let's get consistent. Let's put on a real showing here and be this superstar that he is. And I think the balance of not forcing that and just letting that happen will really be key, because he is that good and he is that special. And, it is interesting as well. We kind of touched on this. How much did Miami become so much more confident? How much did Shannon Dawson become more confident in just his team? Because that first game against A&M, they were force feeding Tony. They were doing any and everything because it just felt like they had to. That's all they had. And so whether you want to give credit to Ohio State taking that away or give credit to others stepping up, and the play calling to be more diverse in regards to who they go to and guys making those plays. Regardless, I've said this throughout the playoff in these last couple of games, it feels like we're seeing and getting ready for the final form of this Miami offense. And I think we've seen kind of two versions of that. And now can it slam pack in the middle here and get to as close to it, and then one more step if and when they play in a national championship. So I think the reoccurring theme for me with Ole Miss all year is this is not the defensive line that they had a year ago and the year before. This is not the defense in regards to tenacious and just scary guys. Do they have great players? Yes. Again, this is a playoff team that has won 2 games. They also went on the road, and did their thing. Actually, they had a home game there, but beating, a team in Georgia that beat them the game before they played them. And so to me, just seeing it, what that looks like, how they're able to do that, what kind of challenges are they going to want to present? Because right now, I don't know what you sit and say the weakness is for Miami. I mean, I know that that's what we do, and we cover these guys, but legitimately, on paper, is it Carson Beck? Is that what everybody wants to point at? Awesome. Please, you think that's the case. He's going to dial you up. It's not the offensive line. It's not the running game. I don't know what they try to attack, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, the weakness, I guess you could say, is offensively, they scored 10 against A&M again, the scenario of the weather, 24 against Ohio State, best defense in the country. So if you want to try to get in a shootout, but Miami's not going to let that happen. That's the thing. What we saw with Ole Miss Georgia 39-34, that's not going to happen. This Miami defense is not going to give up points like that. So that would just really shock me if something like that happened. Yeah. On the defensive side, Mac, D-Money was referencing Trinidad Chambliss and Lacey and these guys, and maybe taking a page out of that Louisville game plan of getting the ball out quick, getting the ball out early. You were talking about how you feel like this defense has adjusted to that, and they've kind of been able to counteract what people used to do to them. Right. And this D-line's gotten better at dealing with a more dual threat guy. Marcel Reed is a perfect example of that. Chambliss is really talented. I mean, this offense looked great against Georgia, but I feel like this Miami defense is a little bit of a different challenge. And the way they're playing right now, they're just the hottest defense in America. Yeah, no, there's no question. And the most dominant, right now, and the things that they have, really been able to do. And I think what really can hurt you with Trinidad there, the quarterback for Ole Miss, is he's not necessarily running to scramble. He's extending plays. He's keeping his eyes downfield, trying to hit the absolute bomb.
he's only gone over 100 yards one time, and that was the first time against Tulane, where he kind of had his coming out party and just went really nuts. He's had a 70 since then, and that's really it. I mean, the last stretch of the season against Citadel, which I'm sure he didn't play much, he had -1 rushing yards, 10 rushing yards, 26, 36, 14. Like, that's the stretch that he's on right now. So it is not the threat of him running. It is not the threat of him using his legs to get yards. It's if he breaks contain and your, rushers are not disciplined and flying upfield or staying out of gaps, he's going to move around and then hit the bomb downfield that opens up. Similar to what Cam Ward would do a year ago, just faster. He's moving around. Cam was very calm, very, almost lethargic looking because he's just walking around, standing still, waiting. Yeah. This guy will run around the whole field until he kind of finds something, kind of Johnny Football, if you will there. Again, Johnny ran the ball a lot more effectively than this guy did. But to keep his ability downfield, I mean, he has so many 300-plus yard games, so many multiple touchdowns. He's a beast. I mean, there's no question this guy is a problem. But
and came out of nowhere, Mac. I still think it's one of the craziest stories we've ever had in college football.
D2. I mean, like literally – Coach Kiffin would make fun of him during the season, like, don't do that D2 stuff. Like, stop what you're doing. But he's electric. He's really fun to watch. I hope he gets another year. It's kind of inverse of what I feel about Diego Pavia. I cannot wait till Pavia leaves. I want this guy to have more time. I want this guy to have another year here. I just think he does it right, and he's really fun to watch. So he is a problem, and you have to be aware of that. But my thoughts, as you kind of alluded to, is Miami has figured that out. Miami has perfected, just like I said on offense, the final form of their defense too. They are so confident right now in their defensive line, in their pass rush, in their contain, in electric superstars, that are out here making these plays that, sure, next man up, let's go. I don't think you're afraid of this offensive line. I thought you certainly respect the run game and the things they've been able to do, but it's not to the same caliber that Texas A&M had. Probably much closer to what we saw from Ohio State, and obviously a little bit of size difference. Those guys were extremely big. So I feel good on both sides, and maybe that's the Achilles heel, right? Everybody's easing up, everybody's feeling good, and then just here comes Ole Miss out of nowhere.
That is my one kind of big concern, Mac, and D-Money alluded to this too. You've been the underdog the last 2 games. No one's believing you. Everyone's picking against you. I mean, you were a 9.5-point dog to Ohio State.
Crazy.
Now it's flipped. You're favored. Everyone, I've got, when you click on the Miami Ole Miss game on ESPN, you see Joey Galloway says Miami will win national championship. Like, it's just completely flipped. Yeah. And I feel like Mario Cristobal and the staff can handle that, but it is different. It is unique, and you don't want this team to start to relax. Because I think Ole Miss, even though they did beat Georgia and rectified the loss they had earlier in the year, I still feel like people are doubting Ole Miss because their own coaches are leaving. I mean, obviously Kiffin left, and then all these assistants, and what's going to happen with that deal. So Golding can really hit that. No one believes in us. No one wants this. That worries me a little bit, Mac.
Yeah.
But
the us against the world thing.
Yeah, I hope Miami can keep that.
Yeah, we'll see, and I certainly they will. And again, I think that this coaching staff comes from a Saban. They both do, actually. Everybody left comes from
all
a Saban
4
staff.
left.
Yeah, it's just okay. Great, Coach. You picked the winner. I think at the end of the day, they've been around that, so these head coaches know, how to kind of temper the different things that are said, and they're going to find anything, right? They're going to create clips, AI, and put them out to watch their team. Watch what this guy said about you. Nobody believes me. I'll never forget a couple of years ago when Georgia won I believe their second championship in a row, and the first thing we hear is nobody thought we could do this, and you're just like, what? No, everybody thought you could do it. They're masterminds, right, at creating, whatever type of, mindset they need for their team. So that's impressive. And I certainly think they will, really be able to do that. But, just looking at these receivers, for Ole Miss, they're electric. I mean, you look at their top 5 pass catchers collectively, they're averaging 17 yards a catch. That's impressive. They are pushing the ball downfield. I think Wallace is really, really good. He is a big receiver in regards to, body presence and the things that he can do. He's about 6'2", can go up and get it. And then Stribling, the other guy, about 6'2.5", just some good receivers that can make these plays and come down with it. And then the running attack, with Lacey there, he is different. He is special. He has good vision, good power, great speed. He's a really fast guy. But then, you kind of look after that, that's all they got. And so he's going to be taking a beating in regards to the physical nature of this game, the hard hits that we have seen from Miami produce, not only with their defensive line, but when you get to that secondary and you look at guys like Thomas, the safety number 8, just flying down and knocking dudes out. That'll be an interesting test too, just the durability, because to me, and this is maybe a pull it back kind of an overarching point about this, it felt like Ole Miss put everything into that game.
That's a good point.
And maybe they did. From a coaching staff standpoint, we'll talk about that in a second, who's even going to be available. But then just the players, that's a lot. And even though Georgia isn't quite the Georgia of old and the Georgia that fans are expected to seeing, it still takes it out of you after you play them. And now you're playing Miami, who, again, is the bully and has been bullying everyone, so far in this tournament in the entire month of November after that SMU loss there. So just where are they? I know they're going to be excited. I know they're going to be ready to go. But physically, once you start getting hit in the mouth, like we saw Ohio State, what kind of happens to you the rest of the way?
And I do like that both of these teams didn't have a bye. So that part is even, at least when you're coming into this game. Mac, I think the people can kind of guess who we're picking. I was hesitant the Ohio State game. You were much more confident than me. I thought Miami would for sure cover. I was hesitant, and I said, you know what, just forget it. Let's take Miami. Let's go. And I feel like this game is a little bit of a trap because we feel like Miami's the better team. Mm-hmm. They're playing better. You've got the off-the-field stuff that we were talking about, the coaches and all that. I'm taking Miami. I'm taking them to cover. I don't – I doubt that you disagree, Eric McLean.
No, I don't. And again, I mentioned that staff. That's gonna be a really big part of this because whether they are there, they're not there, they're kind of there,
and they're getting pressure from Kiffin, all that.
It's weird. Everybody feels it. And maybe that galvanizes them. If they're not there, maybe it pulls them together, and it's even more of a us against the world. It is literally whoever's in that locker room that day versus everybody. And who knows who's it going to be. It is so dumb. It sucks. And I hate that they're having to deal with that. And we knew that going into this whole thing, though, that they were going to be faced with it. The other part, I didn't really touch on this defensively, but these guys from a defense perspective don't rush the passer well. Mm-hmm. They have 28, 29 sacks on the season. They have a couple ball hawks. They have some guys that'll take that ball away and deliver, but don't have any defensive touchdowns, don't have a bunch of explosives on that side of the ball. I just think it's going to be such a different feeling, for Shannon Dawson and this offense going into this game. I just do. And I think that's going to be freeing. I think we see them let it rip. I think we see Miami score the most points they've scored in this playoff so far. And so are they able to contain Ole Miss? I don't think you want it to be a track meet. I think, Miami certainly can do that. They're built for it, but I don't think they want to. And I don't think their defense will allow that. I mean, they're too good. We've seen them play against a very similar team in Texas A&M. And obviously a better team, as everyone thinks, in Ohio State, and shut those guys down too. So I'm for sure rocking with the Hurricanes and what Miami's going to be able to bring to this table. And I think Mario Cristobal will set that edge of still, nobody believes in you. Don't let them on the bandwagon now. The door's locked. The bus is rolling. Nobody's getting on here. Let's keep this thing rolling all the way back home. And let's play for glory. And that's where I think he is.
That's the crazy part. Win this game, you're playing for a national championship in your home stadium. That is wild.
It's crazy.
Unreal.
It's crazy. So
we'll see.
We'll see
if we're talking about that next week.
It's going to be a ton of fun. I cannot wait. Either way, it's going to be a great game. This is a great semifinal. Somebody's getting their first national championship. That's amazing.
Which is really cool.
It's really amazing.
Whoa. Not Miami.
Player as a coach.
Oh, as a
first coach.
Okay, I got you.
All four of them. Nobody's done it.
Because Oregon hasn't won a natty. Indiana hasn't.
Oregon hasn't won a natty ever.
No,
Indiana probably never.
Indiana hasn't.
Ole Miss
I don't
probably never.
Ole Miss hasn't. So that's why I thought, I was like, Mac, hold on, Miami. But yes, coaches.
Just these
right.
coaches. Because there was all that. We're sick of seeing Bama. We're sick of seeing Clemson. We're sick of seeing Georgia. Well, here we are. Ain't got none of them.
Now Mac and
But
I
it's
are
going to be
just
fun.
sick.
It's going to be fun. I think the Canes get it done, though. We'll keep this party rolling, keep this train going. Appreciate you guys for subscribing, making this journey so much fun. These episodes have been tremendous. This will be it for the week, and then we'll hit you right after the game because it's going to be a party one way or the other. We appreciate you guys. Go subscribe, jump in the comments. Until next time, we'll see y'all.